Hey everyone, this is Matt, and in today's video I finally am bringing to you my Master Duel Diamond 1 Eldlich deck profile video post Adventure Engine release. Okay, so people have been asking me about this. I've been posting a lot of my matchups, showcasing some of the games and decks that I've been seeing since the Adventure Engine came out to get to Diamond 1. And a lot of people ask, oh, where's your deck profile? Where's your deck profile? Okay, here it is. Please stop asking me about it. And if anyone asks me from here on, just click on my videos and search for it. It's not hard. So, the reason I didn't, rush to make this is because, well, first I wanted to actually get to Diamond 1 so I can say it's actually a Diamond 1 deck profile. But also, honestly, for anyone who's been watching my channel or following my content before, I've changed 2 cards in my deck. Like 2 cards since the Adventure Engine came out, right? So not that interesting, that requires a new video, but maybe for some of your new viewers or whatever, you don't want to dig through my old content, you just want to see the latest stuff. So here it is. All right, so let's get into it. Yeah, I'll point out the 2 card difference for people who have already seen it. But anyway, yeah, monsters. So I'm actually gonna start with Eldlich. So 2 copies of Eldlich the Golden Lord. You only need 2 copies. I'm not going to play the trip video again. You only need 2 copies. Stop playing 3 copies. It's too many. You very rarely want to actually see this card in your hand. And when you do, you don't want to see more than 1. If you see more than 1, you're going to have a bad time, right? And I was like, oh, but what if both of my Eldliches get banished? Then you didn't play around their banishing cards well enough. Like, cards that banish include but are not limited to Called by the Grave, DD Crow, Ice Dragon's Prison, right? There's a number of cards that banish. You just have to play around them, right? And remember, as long as you have 1 Eldlich, you're fine. Like, it doesn't matter if one of the 2 Eldlich is fine. But if both your Eldlich go, you can technically still win through some your other monsters that you have, because that's not the only monster in your deck. So yeah, 2 Eldlich the Golden Lord. You don't need more than 2 of these. Yeah, this is your boss monster. You summon this guy with a bunch of back row, you just win the game. So his effects are a graveyard effect and a hand effect, both of which completely do not get stopped by skill drain. The graveyard effect is a lingering effect, which means if you summon Eldlich at set 3500 attack using the graveyard effect, you cannot reduce that attack or remove the destruction protection via cards like Imperm, Chalice, Forbidden Droplet, etc. It is a lingering effect. It is not a continuous effect. And the hand effect sends a card to the graveyard. It does not destroy, which means it can out DPE if it's on the field. And if you send DP to the graveyard, it will not be able to recycle itself on the standby phase. So yeah, 2 Eldlich of Golden Lord. This is your main boss monster. 3, that's right, 3 Lord of the Heavenly Prison. This is your secondary boss monster, so if you don't have Eldlich, you can use this guy. Similar to Eldlich, his effect is only in the hand, so he dodges skill drain. And he doesn't have like a full dedicated engine like Eldlich does, but I've definitely won games just using Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Yeah, I run 3 of them because even though they're like kind of hard once per turn, you don't want to see more than 1 in your opening hand. You definitely want to see this as often as possible because it's also your main back row protection. If you'll notice my deck profile, there is no Solemn Judgment. I remove my Solemn Judgments, and the reason for that is because Solemn Judgment going second feels real bad. Going first, it's good. Lord of the Heavenly Prison is good going first or second. So, yeah, Lord of the Heavenly Prison is my primary protection with back row. There are other ways to protect against back row, and I'll get into that later. All right, so 3 Lord of the Heavenly Prison, 2 Maxis. Yes, only 2. This card is also a hard once per turn. You don't want to see more than 1 in your opening hand, otherwise you're going to have a bad time. So unlike combo decks where you want, literally 1 card can set up an entire board, right? A back row deck, that's not the case. So a back row deck, you want to see as many unique cards that you can set face down and play per turn. So if you have too many copies of a card, especially cards that are hard once per turn, that's basically bricking, right? For combo decks, they don't care. They don't care about if they draw 3 ashes as long as their 4th and 5th card are their full combo, right? So yeah, 2 Maxi. I never really needed more than this. People say, oh, I don't really, some people prefer to not have Maxi and have Lava Golem instead. There are other alternatives to Maxi, but here's the thing, guys. The thing about Maxi is it baits out Called by the Grave. It baits out Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Called by the Grave hits Eldlich, so you definitely want to have Called by bait. And Ash Blossom also hits the Elixir, so you also want Called by the Ash bait there. So yeah, you have a few baits for Ash. The only hand trap that actually really affects you are Ash Blossom and DD Crow. Not many people run DD Crow, so not too worried about that. But Ash Blossom that everyone runs only temporarily stops you from summoning Eldlich for like 1 turn. It doesn't really stop you that much. Plus, you're playing the grind game. Like, whether the game is like 5 turns, 7 turns, 8 turns, whatever, like 12 turns, it's the same. Like, stopping your Eldlich for 1 turn is not that good. So yeah, Ash Blossom doesn't do much. I guess Ghost Bell is the other card that can stop Eldlich from and the Elixir, but Ghost Bell has other issues, which I'm gonna get into later. So yeah, these are your only monsters that you need in your main deck. Do not play more of these monsters. You don't need Ash Blossom. You don't need hand traps. You're not playing a combo deck. You are playing a control deck. Control decks do not need hand traps. Max C is technically a hand trap, but it is a Floodgate hand trap, so it's way higher impact, and it works with your control style play. Spells. We have 4 spells. We have 2 Pot of Duality, 2 Pot of Extravagance. You do not need Cursed Eldland. You do not need any of the Eldlich spells. The Eldlich spells are ass. Cursed Eldland sucks. Maybe I'll make another video talking about why I hate Cursed Eldland with a fiery passion. But yeah, Pot of Duality and Pot of Extravagance. Very good. Why do I run 2 of each? First of all, your 3rd Pot of Extravagance will never, ever, ever be played. Most of the time, like you'll like, let's say you banish 12 cards, like you'll have 3 left, but there's a good chance if you use Dogmatic Punishment or something else, you won't even have 3 left, so it might not even get played. But also, like, do you really want to banish 3 just to draw 1? I don't know, it just seems pointless to me. Also, Pot of Extravagance is a hard once per turn, so if you see 2 in your opening hand, that's not good. It's a brick, right? Also, Lord of the Heavenly Prison can search Pot of Duality. It can search Pot of Extravagance. It can search anything, right? So Lord has 2 effects. First effect, reveal in the hand, protects all set cards. All set cards. That means monsters. That means spell traps. That means your opponent's monsters and spell traps. Any set cards on the field are immune to destruction abilities. That means if you ever use Dogmatic Punishment and you're trying to pop one in their back row, you should chain Lord of Heavenly Prison, the second effect, to your Elder Entity Entis, right? So usually the way you do it is like punishment. So let's say Lord is revealed in your hand. Punishment, target one of their monsters, send Entis. New chain. Entis chain link 1, Lord of Heavenly Prison chain link 2. Not only does that protect the Entis destruction effect, but it means that your Lord will be summoned itself to the field before the Entis goes off, which means the pop will go through. Otherwise, Lord will protect your opponent's set cards from being destroyed by Entis. Yeah, so Pot of Duality, Pot of Extravagance can be searched by Lord or Heavenly Prison. You typically want to prioritize Extravagance. If you run out of them, grab Pot of Duality. Yeah, your pots just let you see cards that you want to see. So you know how I said Lord of Heavenly Prison is your back row protection? Technically, store these pots, because these pots can all draw into your Lord of the Heavenly Prison, right? Yeah, so because if you run a 2-2 ratio, you're less likely to see two of the same in your hand, and you're more likely to see a mix. You're way more likely to see 1 Extrav, 1 Duality in your hand than you are to see double Duality or double Extrav. The math works out, right? So you don't need more than 2. I never had trouble of like not seeing it often enough, and I rarely saw 2 in my opening hand. You don't want to see 2 of any of these spots in your opening hand. Alright, so those are your spell lineup. Yeah, so you don't need any more spells. We're playing in pure order, like we're a trap deck. Yeah, you don't need other spells. Cursed Eldland sucks. Stop playing that card. So does the other spell Elixirs. They also suck. Traps. So let's get into the Eldlich Engine. I'm gonna jump around here because Master Duel doesn't let me modify my my cards order. So we have 3 Elixirs. This is non-negotiable. You must run 3. We have 1 Conquistador. Unfortunately, it got limited to 1 in like 2 ban lists ago for some stupid reason. So yeah, we run 1 and we run 2 Huaqueros. What about the other Golden Land traps? What about Guardian of Golden Lands? You do not need that. This is perfectly fine. Like your Eldlich Engine is the weakest part of your deck. You only need it so that you can attack their monsters and life points. Like otherwise, every other card in this deck is better than the Eldlich Engine. So yeah, Conk at 1, Hawk at 2. That's all you need, and Elixir at 3. But what if I don't see my Eldlich Engine enough? Well, we run Trap Trick, and Trap Trick can search Elixir. So you're definitely going to see your Eldlich Engine. So, alright, people say, oh, what if I'm not drawing these cards? Alright, so you have 2 Eldlich, You have 3 Elixir, that's 5 cards. 2 Haquero, 1 Conquistador, that is 8 cards. 2 Trap Trick is 10. And then all of these pots can draw into them, so that's 14. So 14 of your 40 card deck will draw you into your Eldlich Engine. And theoretically 16, because Max C can draw you into your Eldlich Engine too. So yeah, you should be seeing your Eldlich Engine every game. If not, then you're just extremely unlucky. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, you don't need more than 2 Haquero and 1 Conch. Do not run 3 Haquero. Do not run Guardians of Gold Land. The card sucks. And the spells also suck. Alright, let's get into our other normal trap lineup. So here we have 3 Torrential Tribute. This is at 3. Why is it at 3? It's not hard once per turn, okay? If you read this text, it's very simple. Summon a monster, destroy all monsters. Done. It's not limited to once per turn, therefore we run 3 of them. The more we see these in our opening hand, the better. It just wipes the board, right? Because we're on Trap Trick, we basically have 5 copies of Torrential Tribute. Needle Sealing is amazing. It's basically 2 more copies of Torrential Tribute. It reads, when there are 4 or more monsters on the field, destroy all face-up monsters. Most monsters in the game go face-up. Yeah, so most decks put out 4 monsters or more. It's very hard to find a deck that does not. Sky Striker's probably the only one that doesn't. But every other deck will put out 4 monsters very easily. Especially now that we have the Adventure Engine running around. Guess what, guys? The Adventure Engine is 2 extra bodies. So whatever deck they had without the Adventure Engine, like Virtual World or like Fenites, whatever, they now have 2 additional bodies thanks to the Adventure Engine. So it's even easier to pop Needle Sealing. And guess what? Your Eldritch cards interact with them. So what do I mean? So Torrential Tribute requires you to summon, right? If you want to force a summon during the battle phase, you flip Haquero, summon Haquero, flip Torrential Tribute, or Elixir, or whatever. Needle Sealing requires 4 monsters on the field. That's either side of the field. So you can contribute 1 monster, and your opponent can contribute 3. Which means if they only have 3 monsters, you flip Haquero, and then you Needle Sealing blow up the board, right? So yeah. These cards are all like, let's just blow up everything. Now, before I talk about these cards here, I'm going to get into some other normal traps. So we have 2 copies of Dogmatic of Punishment. This card is your spot removal, and it's also one of your few back row removals. Note that we don't have very many back row removal in this deck, but we do have a few, right? So, Dogmatic of Punishment, you send a card from your extra deck, targeting a monster. If the monster you send is attack equal or higher, it will destroy it. And then you're locked out of your extra deck for a turn, but that's not a big deal. So Dogmatic Punishment is hard once per turn, which means if you draw 2 in your opening hand, that's no bueno. You can only use 1 of them on your opponent's turn. So people, why do you run a lot of 2-ofs? So the 2-of cards I run are cards that are hard once per turn. The 3-ofs are cards that are not hard once per turn. Oh, so why don't I run 3 Needle Sealing? Well, it's more of a... The reason I don't run 3 Needle Sealing is because, yeah, sometimes, like, Needle Sealing is harder to proc than Torrential Tribute. Like, let's say on a given turn, if a player reaches 4 monsters, and then or 5 monsters, and you plop them with Needle Sealing, it's very unlikely they're going to reach 4 or 5 monsters again on the same turn. So you don't really need to have 2 on the same turn. But also, like, yeah, the condition is harder to flip. Plus, I just didn't have room for the 3rd. Like, if I had room, I would probably put a 3rd in, just because it's such a good card. But yeah, Punishment is not. It is hard once per turn, unlike Needle Sealing and Torrential. So this basically can pop you 2 cards on your opponent's field. If you send Elder Entity Intis, which pops a card if it gets sent to the graveyard. So next, Ice Dragon's Prison. Why do we have this? Very good against the Eldlich matchup. You try to banish both their Eldliches. If you fear they have Ice Dragon's Prison, play around that. Do not have a situation where you have an Eldlich in field and 1 in the graveyard. Just avoid that situation altogether, right? If your opponent doesn't, punish them hard with Ice Dragons. And another thing about Ice Dragons, it's really good against DPE. There's still a lot of DPE running around. DPE can be outed by chaining Ice Dragons to DPE. So DPE activates its effect to pop cards. You chain Ice Dragons, target Celestial. Banish Celestial and DPE. They'll still get the pop, but you never have to deal with DP ever again, and they will not get the draw 2 with Celestial. Ice Dragons is great. It also outs problematic monsters like what is it called? The Chaos Max, Blue Eyes Chaos Max. It outs Endymion. It outs a lot of stuff, right? So quick thing about, remember, all these normal traps are normals, which means Trap Trick and Search. So I don't have 2 copies of Punishment. I have 4 copies. I have 4 copies of Ice Dragons. I have 4 copies of Needle Sealing. 5 of Torrential. So Trap Trick. You must run Trap Trick if you're running a deck with a lot of traps. There's no reason not to. It literally is just more copies of the traps that you want to see. And since we have such a great toolbox of trap cards in our deck, you Trap Trick into the card that fits the situation that you're in. Alright, the final normal trap that I'm going to talk about, Witch's Strike. Okay, so for those of you who have watched all my previous Eldlich videos, including my last Eldlich deck profile video, you might think, okay, I already watched your video. What should I change for the Adventure Engine? I used to have 2 dimensional barrier, D barriers. I took them out and put in 2 Witch's Strike. Why did I do this? Two reasons. One, D barrier lost a lot of value because thanks to the Adventure Engine, a lot of decks that are, for example, Link Monster based, like Sky Strikers, like freaking Prank Kids, all of a sudden are now stronger thanks to the Adventure Engine and are seeing more play. Phantom Knights, for example, they also use Link Monsters a lot. So D barrier was great when all you had running around was Sword Soul with like DPE. Then D barrier was amazing. But I climbed a diamond, I saw very few Sword Soul compared to before. Like almost every deck I was playing Adventure, and D barrier usually doesn't do much with Adventure. Although typically Adventure decks, like if you do keep D barrier, you call synchros. Most of the time they'll do a synchro play, but yeah. So why do I play Witch's Strike? Let's read this card together. If your opponent negates a normal special summon of monsters, or the activation of card or effect, destroy all cards your opponents control and in their hand. So the first effect basically says if they Solemn Strike you, Solemn Judgment you, whatever, you can activate this. The second effect is, oh, if one of your cards has the activation negated, right? So no, activation, not the effect. So you cannot Witch's Strike after Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom says negate the effect, does not say negate the activation. However, Ghost Bell says negate the activation. So you can Witch's Strike if they Ghost Bell you. And I have done that, and it's hilarious. So, no, it says destroy all cards your opponent controls and in their hand. That's insane, right? Clears their front row, clears their back row, clears their hand. You do this on their turn, usually. So they already drew their card from the draw phase. Goodbye. Like, you just win the game. Like, and guess what? Because every deck is running freaking, you know, Adventure Engine, and the Adventure Engine puts up a card, the Wandering Griffin Rider, which explicitly says negates the activation of a card or effect. Therefore, you should be running this, right? My favorite play if I'm going, and this is good going first or second. So that's the thing about my trap cards. People say, oh, traps are only good going first. No, traps are great going first or second. You just have to run the right traps, right? Torrential Tribute can use on my turn or their turn, going first or going second. It's a board wipe. Same with Needle Sealing. Same with Punishment. Same with Ice Dragons. Same with Trap Trick. Witch's Strike 2. Let's say you're going first. You set 5. They go to them. They start out. They put out their Adventure Engine. They summon their token. They summon their Griffin. Now that their Griffin is on that field, before they put out any more negates, you flip a card that will threaten their board. So maybe flip Dogmatic Punishment. By the way, Dogmatic Punishment, for those of you who didn't know, single-handedly destroys the Adventure Engine. What do I mean? So remember, if you send Elder Entity and Tis, you get a free pop, right? If they have the Adventure token with Griffin Rider, with the Draco back attached, and they have Fateful Adventure, this card targets the Adventure token. You send Elder Entity and Tis. The Adventure token pops, which sends Draco back to the graveyard, and then Elder Entity and Tis will pop Fateful Adventure. Most players only want one Draco back, one Fateful Adventure, and which means those cards are gone. It also means that the Griffin Rider, if they still have it, does nothing. It does not negate. It's only like a big beater, level 7 beater. But yeah, this card right here will literally single-handedly get rid of the Adventure Engine. I kid you not. Just as soon as you're able to, Dogmatic Punishment on their token, take out Draco back, take out token, take out Fateful Adventure, and you never have to deal with the Adventure Engine ever again for that duel. Another thing is that this card also outs DPE. So I'm going to get into outs for DPE later. But yeah, just keep that in mind that you can out DP with this card. Like permanently, not just, oh, it's going to revive next turn. Back to Witch's Strike. So yeah, this card, if you are able to resolve it, you single-handedly win the game. So yeah, going first, you set your cards, they put out the Adventure Engine. As soon as Griffin hits the field, threaten them with something. Flip a Goza Match, flip a Punishment, flip something, right? Their Griffin will be forced to negate. They'll almost, like 99.9% of the time negate. Allow them to negate. Do not chain Solemn Strike to their negate. Allow the negate to go through. New chain, flip Witch's Strike. They're done. You destroy everything, they are completely done. There's like the amount of card advantage that this generates by itself is absolutely insane. And guess what? This is not a counter trap. This is a normal trap, which means it can be grabbed off of Trap Trick. So you have 4 copies of Witch's Strike, right? So so what happens if you have Trap Trick, right? So here's how it works. Let's say they have Griffin Rider, right? So Chain Link 1, let's say you use Dogmatic Punishment. Chain Link 2, they chain Griffin Rider to negate Dogmatic Punishment. Chain Link 3, you chain Trap Trick. Trap Trick so chain resolves backwards. Trap Trick will set Witch's Strike from your deck. Griffin will negate Punishment, and because Witch's Strike is on the board, right, at during the resolution of the chain in which a negate of an activation of a card occurred, it is now available to trigger, which means on the new chain you will be able to Witch's Strike. It's absolutely broken. Like, I don't know why people are sleeping on this card. Okay, if you are watching this video and you're like a combo player, you're playing Sword Soul, you're playing Virtual World, you don't run this card. This card works in this deck because we are a trap deck, right? Like, look at all these traps, right? So, yeah, people say, oh, you set traps, you can only activate them next turn, right? That's okay, right? If you're a combo deck, you want to use your monsters the same turn that you have them, right? You don't want to wait, like, they're off, like trap cards and combo decks, like combo monsters, are off by a turn, right? So, you don't have that synergy. And if you're going second, they set up a board full of negates. You set a bunch of cards, including this card. You bait every single negate of theirs. And after their final negate is exhausted, you flip Witch's Strike. Done. You just bait their negates. And then eventually they'll run out of negates, and then they will not be able to negate Witch's Strike. Or if you have Solemn Strike and Witch's Strike, you flip Witch's Strike after the first negate, and if they try to use a second negate on your Witch's Strike, you Solemn Strike, and it goes through. So, yeah, Witch's Strike is amazing. Yeah. The only reason I'm main decking this is because the Master Duel format is currently the adventure format, in which every player, like every freaking deck, is putting up negates. Decks before that never had a negate now have a negate. Sky Striker now has a negate. Prank Kids now has a negate. Virtual World now has a negate. Although some virtual players like already ran Baronne de Fleur. But by the way, Baronne de Fleur, a very popular monster. This card will deal with Baronne de Fleur. Borreload Savage Dragon negates the activation. Flip this there. A lot of people run Ghost Bell to stop the DP from reviving from the graveyard. Ghost Bell negates the activation. They negate your Eldlich from coming back from the graveyard. You Witch's Strike after Ghost Ogre. Done, right? Invoked is still popular. Invoked Mechaba negates the activation. So, I swear, every time I resolve this card, I win the duel. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, if I see this card, and I'm against, like here's the thing. But what if your opponent doesn't have negates? If your opponent doesn't have negates, you're going to win anyway. If your opponent does have negates, you're going to win anyway because you have this card. Like, it's just so good. Please play this card. I promise you, you will not regret. Like, I've already posted some videos on my channel showcasing this card. And every time you see this card, so in all the replays I posted, if this card shows up in my hand, it resolves. It fucking resolves, right? I've never bricked on it. It's never, like, sat there doing nothing. It always resolves if I see it. Let's say you're in an Eldlich matchup. Let's say they have Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment negates one of your cards. New chain, you flip Witch's Strike. This wins the mirror matchup, baby. Yeah, because Eldlich players typically run Solemn Strike, Solemn Judgment, right? Very popular. This will help you win that matchup. So, please, I promise you will not regret. And guess what? This is a normal, guys. It is not, and gals. Maybe there's gals. It is not a UR, ultra rare. It is not a super. It is a normal. It is the freest card ever. I swear. Please just run this at 2. Like, why do I not run 3 copies? Because it's not a hard one to return. But I mean, once you activate one, you're not gonna activate a second one. The game is just gonna end, right? Like, they're either gonna scoop or they're gonna try to play it out at a severe card disadvantage. In which case, they're gonna scoop eventually or just die. So. Yeah, like, and really you have 4 copies of this card thanks to Trap Trick. And guess what? All your pot cards can draw you into any of these traps that I mentioned. So really you have, like, you know, pseudo more copies than just 4. So run this card. It is seriously the freest wins you'll ever have. Just play this. It's free. All right. So that's all my normal traps. Let's do counter traps. So 3 Solemn Strikes. Always run 3. They're not hard once per turn. This card's amazing. It negates summons. Negates monster effects, negates everything. You Elixir, they Ash, you can Solemn Strike. Eldlich comes out. They go into Access Code, you Solemn Strike the summon. Access Code gone. If you, let's say you're against Prank Kids, they normal a prank name, link into Meow Moo, Solemn Strike the Meow Moo. that negates the summon, which means the summon never occurred, which means the graveyard effect never happens. And now their Meowmu's in the graveyard. So, yeah, this card is amazing. Most of the time, you prefer to negate the summon of a monster, like a really problematic monster. But if you can't, do that, because usually if you negate the summon of a extra deck monster, like, it can't be revived from the graveyard. It's basically just gone, right? Another thing about Solemn Strike. Negate the summon of a Sky Striker. Let's say they have Sky Striker, they summon Sky Striker Ray. They link into Hayate or whatever the link Sky Strikers are. You Solemn Strike whatever they link into. So Ray can only revive itself if one of their Sky Striker link monsters leaves the field. But if you negate their summon, they were never on the field to begin with. Therefore, Ray will not be able to revive from the graveyard. So Solemn Strike is absolutely amazing. Let's say you're against DP. They pop something, they go into the graveyard. DP activates the effect in graveyard to revive itself. You chain Solemn Strike, DP is done, right? So people are like saying, like some people ask me in my comments, oh, now that the Adventure Engine is out, don't you want to play the Adventure Engine in Eldlich? Why would I do that? So, guys, the Adventure Engine, the package, is about 10 cards, right? So, to add 10 cards into this deck, I would have to take 10 out or go to 50 cards, which I don't want to do, right? 10 cards, which gets you what? One Omni Negate. One Omni Negate, right? That, unfortunately, you lose this to Skill Drain, right? So you have Skill Drain you want to be able to use. Yeah, if you have the Adventure Engine, you can't really Skill Drain, or you just shut off your Adventure Engine. Like, it doesn't make sense for you to run Adventure Engine here. And like, yeah, there might be some Eldlich players out there who like run some hybrid decks that include the Adventure Engine. It's not good. This Eldlich deck that I'm showing you, the pure Eldlich with traps, is better than whatever bastardized Eldlich, Zombie World, Eldlich Adventure, Eldlich Cybers, whatever. This deck is better. Trust me. And by the way, Solemn Strike is one card, or really I have 3 of them, and it's as effective, if not more, than a Wandering Griffin Rider. So why would you want to run the Adventure Engine? It's 10 freaking cards. Just run Solemn Strike. Oh, what about Spell Trap Negates? Get Judgments if you really need them. Like, whatever. Alright, so those are all my regular traps and counter traps. Let's get into Floodgates. 3 goes in match. Mandatory. Still at 3. Sword Soul still being played. It loses to this card. Prank Kids. Now seeing more play thanks to Adventure Engine. Hard loses to this card. They literally cannot play. Adventure Engine loses this card. Their Adventure token is an Earth, and Griffin Rider is a Wind. So therefore, like, you can literally chain this to Griffin Rider activation before it hits the field, and they can't bring it out. So this card is just amazing. Hard wins against Sky Striker. Hard wins against those decks I mentioned. Hard win. Definitely, I think hard wins against Virtual World, honestly. Like, oh yeah, Virtual World, they have win boss monsters, but like, they can't do a Zeus play, right? They can't do a lot of stuff. Like, you lock them into Earth or you lock them into Wind. They're severely limited, right? Hard wins against Tri-Brigade. Tri-Brigade is still a deck people play. Hard wins against that. Hard wins against Adamantium. All their base monsters are Earth, but all their boss monsters are non-Earth. So hard wins against Adamantium. Like, let's say they're a DP, they're a deck that runs DP. If DP is in the graveyard, it's a dark, and their field is non-darks. You flip this, DP cannot return, right? Like, it's just so good. Fluanderies. Hey guys, remember Fluanderies is back? Fluanderies is seeing a lot of play right now. Goes in match. Doesn't hard beat Fluanderies, but if they summon a water bird and you flip this, they can't summon their wind birds, which are their main birds. So they're just stuck on a Robina, like twiddling their thumbs, right? So yeah, this can definitely help you win the Fluanderies matchup. They basically have to stick to only wind birds, which is hard for them because half of their small birds are waters, right? Yeah, Skill Drain at 3. Pretty self-explanatory. This card can single-handedly win you the game. Decks that do not have out for this, they just lose or scoop. It's just like so freaking free. Just flip this, right? And of course, Imperial Order. We hate back row removal. Imperial Order stops that. So our protection for back row removal is 3 Lords, Imperial Order, so that's 4 cards, and then these pots will help you draw one of these cards, right? So 4 plus 4, let's say 8-ish back row protection, hopefully, right? Another thing about another reason why it was good to take out D-Barrier for Witch's Strike. D-Barrier does nothing to Floowandereeze. Witch's Strike can be chained after, or can be activated after the negate effect of Apex Avion, Mist Valley Apex Avion, right? So Mist Valley Apex Avion is their level 7 bird that has a negate, Omni Negate. So Witch's Strike can be used after that, and I've certainly used it myself. Whereas you know, D-Barrier does absolutely nothing to Floowandereeze. To be fair, Ice Dragons also does very little to nothing against Floowandereeze. Like, technically you can use Ice Dragons to just steal their M-Pen and just beat them over the head with it, or take their M-Pen, like take one of their I don't know, one of your other birds and use it to get rid of M-Pen. Like, yeah, Ice Dragons are not that great, but at least it does something against Flu. D-Barrier does nothing against Flu, right? Imperial Order, like, single-handedly, like, just wins a Floowandereeze matchup. It's so free. Yeah, and obviously Punishment helps you out the Barrier statue, helps you out. Unexplored Winds helps. Yeah, it's very good. So, all right, so that's your main deck. Pretty straightforward. So yeah, people who have watched my videos before, if all you want is like a quick summary of what to do with the adventure, take out D-Barrier, put in Witch's Strike. Done. Extra deck. So these 5 cards here are your Dogmatic and Punishment targets. 3 Entis, because you have 2 Punishment, and your Pot of Extravagance will certainly ban some or all of them, right? Or maybe none. So you just want to have one handy. Make sure like you still have one left, so that you can use it to pop a secondary card. Wind Pegasus Adagnister, a card that you can send to the graveyard, and once in the graveyard, it allows you to bounce one of their cards into the deck whenever they destroy their card, one of your cards. So, yeah. So the whole point of these is to make it like so that Punishment takes out 2 cards, so to speak, right? So Entis allows you to take out 2 cards via destruction. Wind Pegasus allows you to take out 2 cards, one via destruction, one via bounce, and then Cypher Lord Omega allows you to take out 2 cards, but one of the cards must be in the graveyard. So I mentioned before, that Dogmatic of Punishment outs DPE. How does that happen? Because on your turn, let's say it's your main phase, you flip Dogmatic of Punishment, you target DPE, you send Cypher Lord Omega. Now, DPE can obviously chain, but definitely you want to do it if you have skill drain, or you know, if they can't, or they've already used their pop. But basically, if you know their DP is in the graveyard and you want to out that DP so it does not return from the graveyard next turn, you use Punishment on some target your opponent has and send Framelord Omega, because it says here, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target one other card in the graveyard, not your specifically, any graveyard, shuffle both this card and that card into the deck. So this will bounce your opponent's DPE back into their deck. And if you want, if you have a second one, because remember, this card gets recycles itself when it does that, next time you do Punishment, you can take out their Celestial and they don't get a draw too, whatever. So yeah, Omega, absolutely mandatory. These are all great Punishment targets. Alright, that's it for fusions and the synchros. Xyz, your one and only rank 5 Constellar Pallades, allows you to bounce a card. Your Golden Land Trap Monsters, Walkway and Conquista, are level 5s. This is a rank 5. So if you have both on one field, just make this, and you can bounce one of their cards. Quick effect, right? 2500 beater. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. So we can make rank 10s. The reason because Eldlich level 10s, Lord of Heavenly Prison level 10s. So yeah, Gustav Max. Take 2 level 10s, detach 1, burn for 2k. So this helps you OTK, right? Let's say you have 2 Eldliches, right? One at 2500, one at 3500. They swing for 6k. Main phase 2, you make Gustav Max. Gustav Max burns for 2k. You win, right? So yeah, this is like an OTK assister. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Lieb. What we're going to do is use it to rank up from Gustav Max. So you can stack this on top of Max, right? So this card is a 4k beater, and it says once turn, detach a material, gains 2000 attack defense, and for the rest of the turn you can only attack. So this becomes a 6k beater. So let's say you're playing against, oh, I don't know, Adagnister, and they summon the Arrival Adagnister with 6000 attack, or 4000 attack, right? Or 5000. Like, how do you out the Arrival Adagnister? This is your main out to it, unfortunately. So yeah, this becomes 6k. So another OTK idea is if you don't have 6k in worth of damage for swinging, you overlay Eldlich and Lower Heavenly Prison or Eldlich, whatever, 2 level 10s, make Gustav. Gustav detaches, burns him for 2k, stack this guy, rank up, detach, become 6k attack, swing for 6k, 6k plus 2k is 8k, that's game. So, yeah, OTK right there. And of course we have a Zeus, just in case we need to clear their field after swinging with one of these Xyz Monsters. I would say most of the time you're not making Zeus because you have cards on your field, Zeus clears the whole field, and you don't want to send your cards to the graveyard. So I've only used Zeus like once or twice in Eldlich, and that's like when I was low on cards and resources and my opponent had a lot, and then I just like sent all their stuff to the graveyard. I would say if you want to be adventurous with this deck and try out other things in your extra deck, feel free to swap out Zeus. Honestly, you don't see it that often, but when it does, it's a nice little thing, right? Another thing I like about Zeus is like it's a 3k beater, like it's a Dogmatica punishment target. Like let's say you use a pot of extra, have you banish a lot of the stuff, you can still take out monsters that are 3,000 or lower, right? So it's fine. Alright, so arguably the most impactful part of your extra deck is the Link monsters. So Link Spider. What's the point of this guy? So you link away either Huaquero or Conquistador, because remember, each of these cards have graveyard effects that allow you to recycle them, or recycle like grab an Eldlich card and set it from your deck. So these are both level 5 normal monsters, and this requires a normal monster. So how do you, like, let's say on your opponent's end phase, you use Huaquero or whatever, your turn, you link Huaquero or Conquistador into this, you can swing for 1,000 or whatever, and then end phase, you can now trigger Huaquero or Conquistador to set Elixir. So this just gets your Golden Land traps in the graveyard. Next, we have Imduck. Imduck serves a similar purpose to Link Spider. The main reason it's here is to, get rid of one of your Golden Land trap monsters. However, there's there's 2 more reasons why you like Imduck. One reason like Imduck is because, read this. At the start of damage step, this card battle opponent's monster, this card points to destroy that monster. So, similar to Relinquish Anima, but instead of taking their monster, you attack and destroy it. So, can help you out of a pickle sometimes. But also, this is a wind monster. Very important. The reason this is important is because we run the Wind Charmer. The Wind Charmer can only be made using a wind monster. And Imduck is your only wind monster. So why do we run the Wind Charmer? Because cards like Baronne de Fleur exist, right? Dude, the number of times I've revived the enemy's like Baronne de Fleur from the graveyard and use it to like swing for game or to utilize its pop or negate is really good. Like there's a lot of really good wind monsters that you want on your side of the field. For example, let's say that you're against Flaunderies and they have M-Pen in the graveyard. You can use the Wind Charmer to grab their M-Pen, right? Their M-Pen will have its effect active, which means if they try to attack over M-Pen, you can banish a card to basically have the opposing attack defense, right? So yeah, this card is amazing. Most of the time you'll use it to bring back Baronne, but you can also bring out Crystal Wing Synchro Dart. You can bring back their Shen Shen. Any big wind monster that you can use against them, like in your advantage, this from their graveyard, this card will let you grab it. We run Lina Light Charmer for similar reasons as the Wind Charmer, but Lina comes up more. Why? Because we have light monsters in our deck, like a lot of them. This revives enemy light monsters. What light monsters can you revive? Mechaba. If they have a dead Mechaba, you can revive that. If they have a dead Shadal Construct, you can revive that. If they have a dead Sword Soul Chi Shao, you can revive that. There's a lot of light monsters. They have a dead Nibiru, you can revive that. There's a lot of light monsters. Eldlich Mirror Matchup, you revive their Eldlich, so they can't bring it back on their turn with 3,500 attack. This card is amazing. So definitely run this. Yeah, this is also a good way of getting your Golden Land traps into the graveyard. Like, let's say you banish your Constellar Pallades, or like you already use it, you can just link them away with this, right? Same with your Eldlich. Like, let's say Eldlich is on your field at 2,500. You want it to go to the graveyard so that it can come back at 3,500. Use Lina Light Charm and link it away. By the way, when I mentioned that you can revive their Nibiru, decks are never going to Nibiru you because you never summon 5 times. Correct. But a lot of decks, when they realize they're against an Eldlich deck, will often use Nibiru as discard fodder, right? They'll discard Nibiru to play one of their cards, and guess what? Nibiru can be revived from the graveyard basically for free. So, yeah, you can bring back Nibiru with this card. Alright, the one Link 3 is Draco Master of the Tenyi. So why do I run this? I run this because I run access code and I need a Link 3. Okay? So people ask, why do I not run Celine? The reason I don't run Celine is because Celine has almost no valid doesn't have any valid targets. Celine can only revive spellcasters, and I have no spellcasters in my deck other than the Charmers. But when Celine revives, it has to revive in defense position, and Link monsters can never be in defense. Therefore, you will never be able to use Celine's effect. And also, you have so few spells like in your deck, and therefore in your graveyard, that you might not get enough counters to use Celine anyway. So I decided to go, you know what? I'm going to make Draco Master the Tenyi. People ask, why not Nightmare Unicorn? Because we are a control deck. Control decks do not like to discard cards, okay? You do not want to discard cards. Also, Nightmare Unicorn is a 2300, I believe, attack. This is 2600, so this is better. And read this card's effect. It has a decent effect. Cannot be destroyed by a battle with an effect monster. That's cool. If you control no other effect monster, you can destroy effect monster your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters you control or in your graveyard. So let's say your field comprises only of Draco Master of the Tenyi, Quaquero, and a Conquistador. This card will allow you to pop 2 of your opponent's cards. How crazy, how awesome is that, right? This card's great. And it's a light monster, so you can play through Gozen Match. And of course, finally, our second boss, extra deck boss monster, because we have Zeus, is Access Code Talker. I see Access Code Talker way more often than I see Zeus. It's easier to bring this bad boy out. You can link climb using the Charmer monsters. But yeah, this card is amazing. And because we run Link Spider, so let's look at our Link. We have a Earth, we have a Wind, we have a Light for our Link monsters, and we have this Dark. So technically you can do up to 3 pops, although theoretically a 4th if you banish Access Code. But yeah, this is your OTK. Like, if you don't have the rank 10 monsters for OTK, or you need to get over a big boss monster, you can also use this. This can also out a rival adding Mister, only if it's not at 6,000 attack. If it's at 5,000 attack or less, you can out the rival adding Mister. So, yeah, definitely run access code. So yeah, that's the Eldlich deck. Pretty much, that's it. Note that most of the deck is cheap. Like, this whole row here is rares, normals, and a couple super rares. Like, not that many ultra rares. So you can make this deck fairly inexpensively in terms of gem cost, and guess what? It'll be really good. Like, you'll be able to get to Diamond 1. You'll be able to beat everybody. So yeah, that's the Eldlich deck. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Yeah, Witch's Strike, just play it. You will not regret it. Free wins, trust me. If we ever move to a format where the adventure decks are not so good, like maybe when Branded Despia comes out, like the Branded Fusion stuff, you know, that might happen. Then, or like maybe Meow Moo or something happens to the Prank Kids deck, right? Then we can probably take out a Witch's Strike, put back in D Barrier. But for now, Adventure Engine is everywhere, literally everywhere. We're running Witch's Strike, and you should be too. Alright. Thank you all for watching. I will be playing an Eldlich deck in the No Extra Deck Festival. Expect a deck profile for that in the near future. I haven't played yet, so I'm still, you know, I'm not set on a build yet. I want to play it and get a good feel for it before I commit and make a video about it. So, for those of you fans of mine who are saying, oh, you've already posted all this Master Duel content. Where's the TCG content? I want to see a TCG Eldlich list. It's coming. I went to locals last Saturday. I almost went undefeated. I made a big mistake. You know, like, that was a misplay on my part. It was not a deck failure, but I want to get a few more locals tops. You know, still a top, right? I still want to get a few more locals tops under my belt before I put that TCG profile out. So yeah, but don't worry, that will be coming. Yeah, I'm a bit of perfectionist, so I don't want to just throw it out as soon as, you know. Anyway, so yeah, see you on the next video. Peace.